gave the goth kids an excuse to have a good time. Nothing special about this album. It would sound like a B-52's track. The ultimate off record. The Cure formed in 1976 in Crawley, West Sussex, and led by its only consistent member, frontman Robert Smith, the band quickly gained prominence, initially in the punk scene, with their debut album, Three Imaginary Boys, in 1979. The Cure has since gone on to become goth rock royalty, although it's difficult to pin down one single genre that the band has not at least dabbled in, if not mastered. Dark wave, post-punk, punk, pop-punk, jangle pop, dream pop, power pop, art pop, new wave, alternative rock, flamenco. Much of their discography is regarded as essential listening for fans of any of the just mentioned genres. Bands as diverse as Smashing Pumpkins, Blink-182, Deftones, Beach House, and Churches consider them highly influential. They've won numerous awards and accolades. They've been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2019. And now, I'm going to put their entire discography in perspective, beginning with Three Imaginary Boys, released in May of 1979. This album was not released in the United States, Canada, or Australia. It was pretty much just in the UK. Robert Smith did not choose the title selections or the running order for the album. The reviews were good, even though Robert Smith did not approve of how the album was put together. 10:15 Saturday Night was a very memorable single released from the album. Fire in Cairo is an underappreciated Cure classic. Another Day would shape the band's future sound, more so than Grinding Halt would, thankfully for that. Foxy Lady with Michael Dempsey on vocals. It reminds me, if you take away the Michael Dempsey vocals on this cover of Foxy Lady, it would sound like a B-52's track. So What is one of the album's more punk moments, I guess. The title track is pretty good. The Weedy Burton? I'm not sure what's up with that. In my opinion, this is a strong start for the band, but this album very much sounds like 1979 or 1980. In the grand scheme of things, I would say it was a good start. In February of 1980, Boys Don't Cry. This was America's introduction to The Cure. It contained many of the tracks from Three Imaginary Boys, plus the singles that preceded that. It's currently listed at number 438 on the Rolling Stone list of 500 greatest albums of all time, or at least it was in 2012. Jumping Someone Else's Train is on this album, Killing an Arab. The title track, Boys Don't Cry, it's classic. In my opinion, this is the better of the two introductions of The Cure. In April of 1980, 17 Seconds dropped, and this is definitely when the darkness took over. This album didn't chart in the United States, by the way, until 2020, when a deluxe edition was reissued. It peaked at number 186, by the way. This is not one of their most successful albums. The band was so short on cash at the time that they recorded it that the tape ran out when they were recording the final sound, and they didn't have time or money to re-record it. That's why it's only 52 seconds long, because that's all that got recorded. Forest was the only single release from the album. Play for Today is a classic Cure song, in my opinion. This is the first truly cohesive album by The Cure, I would say. And it's the first album in which most of the songs take the shape of that timeless Cure sound. So 17 Seconds is still pretty great. That tier's going to get kind of crowded. Faith was released in April of 1981. It contained the single Primary, which all of a sudden had a lot of tempo. Charlotte Sometimes was added to the 2005 deluxe version. All Cats Are Gray is a pretty cool song. The Drowning Man is a good song. In my opinion, this is one of those albums that is pretty easy to listen to from start to finish. It's really even, I probably would say it's a no-skips album. But at the end of the day, this album is a slightly more focused version of 17 Seconds. So it's another great Cure album. In May of 1982, Pornography was released. Robert Smith has said he was super depressed and super exhausted when it was time to put this album together. He said he wanted this to be, quote, the ultimate off record. And indeed, the vibe here is quite extra, as the kids might say. There were a lot of drugs involved in the making of this album. There was LSD, there was alcohol. Smith says He channeled all the self-destructive elements of his personality into doing something, which ultimately became this album. Initially, this album was not particularly well received, but has since come to be very well regarded. It is number 6 on NME's 50 Darkest Albums Ever list. The Hanging Garden was released as a single. 100 Years is a powerful opener. Why that's not considered one of their classic songs. Cold is super goth. This album just hits harder than Faith or 17 Seconds. It's not necessarily more focused. It just simply is more impactful. At this point in time, I would say Pornography is a classic album. It's one of those albums that if I were going to put on a Cure album, there's a good possibility I would go to that one. If you see a young person all gothed up, and you will still see that these days, walk up to them and ask them to name 2 songs from Pornography, from that album. If they can't, consider yourself at liberty to remove their goth card. In December of 1983, Japanese Whispers was released. It's a compilation album of singles and B-sides that were released after Pornography, but before the band was ready to go work on a new album per se. Let's Go to Bed, The Walk, The Love Cats. This is the band having a little bit more fun. Getting all of their bad vibes out during Pornography, I think, was maybe a little bit liberating. I would say Japanese Whispers is a real hit or miss bag. Some of the B-sides are just okay. The A-sides are decent. It is a good Cure record because of the strength of the A-sides that were good. In 1984, The Top was released, and it was written when Robert Smith was still technically also part of Susie and the Banshees. This is the first album where the band really starts to flex its creative muscles. They really start to explore, more pop sounds, really, while still maintaining sort of their core sound. They cover a lot of new territory. Now, not everything really hits. Wailing Wall just kind of meanders. Give Me It would later become a fun, upbeat song called Hey You. Not really. I made that up. Piggy in the Mirror. Whew. Banana Fish Bones. This album is very hit or miss. Here's the thing. When I first picked up The Top, this was in the late 80s. I didn't really get into The Cure until The Head on the Door and Standing on the Beach. When I picked up The Top, I was really into all things Cure. So somehow I found a way at that time to enjoy this album. The Caterpillar was released as a single. That's one of their classic tracks. But this album really just in and of itself is just okay. Concert, The Cure Live 1984. I'm fairly sure this is out of print and has been for quite some time. I don't think it was even ever issued on CD. The performances are really good. The sound quality is not. I think it may have only been released on cassette. I'm going to say that this is just okay if you can find it. Just because of the poor sound quality, it's not anything that you really need to make a priority out of. In August of 1985, The Head on the Door was released. All of the songs on this album were written by Robert Smith, who was clearly in a better mood. This is fun, gloomy and doomy music, except like for sinking and a night like this. In Between Days was the big single from this album. Close to Me was released as a single. This album gave the goth kids an excuse to have a good time. I'm right. The Baby Screams kind of feels left over from the previous epoch of The Cure, maybe. It's nearly a no-skips album. A Night Like This is a great song. Get Ready to Hate on Me. It is a quintessential Cure album. It's a classic Cure album. In 1986, Standing on a Beach / Staring at the Sea. It had 2 different titles based on whether or not you picked it up on CD, LP, or cassette. Each configuration had different selections. The album, I think, had 13 or 14 songs. The CD had like 17. The cassette had the same 13 or 14 songs the album did, but the flip side of the cassette was like all B-sides. I would say it is nonetheless a fantastic best of collection. It's great. It is a great best of collection. Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me dropped in May of 1987. It became the band's first platinum album in the United States. Just Like Heaven was a minor chart hit. I think it peaked at number 40 in the American Top 40. Other singles included Why Can't I Be You, Catch, would have fit in well on The Head on the Door. Hot, Hot, Hot was a single. It made a little bit of noise. The Kiss has a super long intro. They never gave that up. The Snake Pit kind of has a retro Cure feel at this point. This album, in my opinion, was a more ambitious version of The Head on the Door. And they could have divided this into 2 separate albums, with the more poppy songs on being one album and the more dire vibe songs being on the other album, or they could have, maybe they could have put it together like that, but they didn't. Nonetheless, I still feel like Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me is vintage Cure. It's a really good Cure album. It definitely is something that should be in your Cure collection. And now, ladies and gentlemen, bow your heads and give thanks to the Cure for Disintegration. In May of 1989, one of the best alternative rock albums ever was released, Disintegration. It is number 116 on the Rolling Stones 500 Greatest Albums of All Time, number 38 on Pitchfork's Best Albums of the 80s. It's on lots and lots of lists. I'm not going to do the whole rundown. It did eventually become quadruple platinum. A lot of the music on this album was inspired by Robert Smith's dislike of the band's newfound popularity, and also the fact that Smith was about to turn 30. And that will give you pause to reflect. Fascination Street was a single. They took about a minute out of it for the single. Lullaby, Love Song, Pictures of You, Home Runs, Each and All. Love Song was their most successful single. It hit number 2 in the American Top 40. The Same Deep Water as You is a great song. Last Dance is a great song. Plain Song is the perfect opening track for this album as a whole. And track 12, Untitled, is a perfect closer. This is a no-skips album. It is worthy of every accolade that it has ever received. It is their best album. If I were going to sort of resort as I put them on tiers, I would put this ahead of Pornography. And then in November of 1990, Mixed Up was released. Now, I liked the song Never Enough. It had dark but modern Cure vibes to it. Basically everything else on the album, though, was a remix of an existing track. The extended version of Fascination Street is kind of cool. But in my opinion, this is just an okay title in their library. Entreat! I don't know, it's French. This is live tracks recorded during the Disintegration tour. This was released in March of 1991. The 2010 remastered version of Disintegration includes all of these tracks and everything that was left out of this compilation. Entreat is hard to find. I don't really feel like it's something you have to have. It's not bad. Like I said, if you might pick up the remastered version of Disintegration, I probably could have just put that in non-essential and I would sleep just fine tonight. In 1992, Wish was released. It debuted at number 1 in the UK, at number 2 in the United States, so it was their highest charting album. It was nominated for Best Alternative Album in 1993 at the Grammys. High was the first single. Friday I'm in Love is one of those songs that's taken on a forever life of its own. It was also a fairly big pop hit. A Letter to Elise is considered one of their, it's one of their legendary songs. Open is a solid opening track. To Wish Impossible Things is a really good track. From the Edge of the Deep Green Sea is a really good track. Apart is a really good track. Windy Time to me feels a little forced. Like, come on, let's make another Why Can't I Be You? Or I don't know. It's not, feels a little extra. But nonetheless, I spent a lot of time happily satisfied with Wish, a lot of time listening to it. It's a good record. It's good. Show was released in September of 1993. It's a live album recorded in Detroit. Robert Smith's voice sounds fine on this record. The band has good energy on this album. This compilation leans more on the band's more familiar hit-driven stuff. This was a sort of a companion piece strategy, as this album, while good, was followed up virtually immediately by the band's live album Paris. This is the album more for Cure purists live. This is a bit more about the deep stuff. Close to Me's on this. Hot, hot, hot. It's also a good live album. Sideshow was released in 1993. It contains the tracks that were not included in the CD version of Show. So at this point in time, you can get all that. So hopefully you've updated your new copy of Show. Wild Mood Swings dropped in 1996. In 1996, I listened to this album one time, and not again until a couple of days ago when I started putting together notes for this video. My take on this album in 1996 was, there is nothing special about this album. I didn't think it was bad, but it wasn't very good. Nothing about this album to me was interesting. It sounded like a lot of stuff they'd done before. And maybe that they were trying to do some new things that they weren't really sure about. There were 4 singles. The 13th, Mint Car, Strange Attraction, Gone, This is a transitional album. for the band. I really can't say I liked it any better Saturday than I did in 1996. Next, Galore dropped in 1997. It was the band's second best of compilation. It featured one new track called Wrong Number. It has a very mid-90s sound to it. It sounds like, if you're familiar with the band Republica, if you know your 90s alternative stuff, the track Ready to Go, Wrong Number really reminds me of that song. The versions of the hit singles that were included on this mostly were single versions and 7-inch versions. Hooey. Yeah, I hate to say it, but Galore is a non-essential at the end of it all. Bloodflowers dropped in 2000. There were no commercial singles released. Robert Smith insisted upon that. He didn't see this album as something that was going to have hits. Maybe Someday was released as a promotional single. It made it to number 10 on the American Alternative Airplay chart. The album peaked at number 16, so it was a bit of a decline performance-wise from what the band had done with their previous, 2 or 3 albums. I'm not really sure about the track The Loudest Sound, but to me, basically, everything else on this album really honestly works. It's not Disintegration, and arguably it's not very adventurous, but it is a nicely focused, very cohesive album. It is almost a no-skips album. And I'm going to blow your mind here by putting it on that tier, because it's just a solid album. In November of 2001, the band released Greatest Hits. It was their final album with Fiction Records. Robert Smith agreed to release a Greatest Hits album if he could pick what was on it. The band also recorded acoustic versions of the same track selection, and that was bundled with the Greatest Hits CD in the initial pressings. That eventually became the Acoustic Hits collection, which was released a few years ago. It featured a couple of new songs, Cut Here and Just Say Yes. Pro tip, the acoustic version of Just Say Yes is better. Greatest Hits is an okay collection, but it is tragically, if you can get the version with acoustic hits, but you can get acoustic hits separately. In 2004, Join the Dots, B-Sides, and Rarities dropped. If you don't own this, you need to own this. Or at least stream it, hear it, however you accomplish that. If somehow you've never listened to Join the Dots, I'm not sure we can hang out. It is a B-Sides collection, primarily, some remixes here and there, covers. A Few Hours After This is one of their probably most classic B-sides. Just One Kiss is on this. Burn that was on the Crow soundtrack, maybe one of their best songs from the 90s. Their covers of Hello, I Love You and Young Americans and World in My Eyes. This is, oh boy, where am I going to put this? Good or great? Good or great? Good or great? Good or... Honestly, you really ought to check that out. That is a keeper. In 2004, the self-titled album, The Cure, was released. The End of the World, thumbs up, good song. Taking Off, to me feels like Just Like Heaven, just not as good. Alt.End is okay, those were the 3 singles. Lost reminds me of early Cure with an acoustic 9 Inch Nails production vibe. Huh? Us and Them, okay. This album, honestly, is just okay. It goes on that same tier. To me, this album is equally as unremarkable as Wild Mood Swings. In October of 2008, 413 Dream was released. There were several singles, including The Only One, which is a fun song. Freak Show, Sleep When I'm Dead is a good song. The Perfect Boy is an okay song. The album was originally intended to be a double album. The band recorded 33 songs for this. And Sleep When I'm Dead, interestingly enough, was originally written as a track for The Head on the Door. Underneath the Stars is exactly what one would expect from a Cure opening track. It's good. It's not bad, not great. It's Over is a very loud closing track. To me, this band sounds like the album set out to not try very hard, on purpose, to just enjoy making a Cure album. The songs that work are pretty good. Some of the songs are just misfires. This album is just okay. Also from 2008, Hypnogigic States, the EP featuring remixes of songs from 413 Dream. Pete Wentz from Fall Out Boy did one of them. Honestly, I just don't care. Alternative Rarities from 2010 is mostly alternative versions of songs from Disintegration, mostly a lot of instrumentals. This is something the band self-released in 2010 on low bitrate MP3s. And here's what I think of that. Bestival Live 2011 was released in 2011. All proceeds from the sale of this album went to the Isle of Wight Youth Trust. I'm not 100% sure, but I think this might feature the only recording of Killing Another, which was one of the reworked versions the band did of Killing an Arab after it became, shall we say, unfashionable to do that song. The band had also, by the way, along the way performed that track as Kissing an Arab. Bestival Live 2011 is a pretty decent live album. I'd say it's good. I mentioned earlier Acoustic Hits. Some of these are pretty interesting renditions of the studio cuts that were included on the Greatest Hits compilation from 2001. But this is a separate release, all of its own. I do think it's good. I do think it's worth checking out. It definitely gives you a fresh perspective on some of the songs, in a good way. Torn Down Mixed Up Extras was released in 2018. It was a sequel to 1990's Mixed Up. I just didn't care. I'm just not that interested in most of the remixes. 40 Live Curation 25 plus Anniversary. That album has the most confusing title. This is a 2018 recording of the band at Robert Smith's Meltdown Festival. And somehow this is bizarre. Some of their later tracks, like It's Over, just seem to play better live. Like, that song's just better on this album. This was released on Blu-ray and on DVD. This is a pretty good live album. And finally, delayed years and years and years, Songs of a Lost World, their first studio album since 413 Dream in 2008. This album is not for people who think Friday I'm in Love or Why Can't I Be You or In Between Days is their version of The Cure that they love. And you probably knew that already if you heard Alone, the first single, and A Fragile Thing. Both of those tracks have been released early. The album is about mortality. It's really, the lyrics are very, very personal. I Can Never Say Goodbye is about the death of Robert Smith's brother. Like I said, this album is about mortality and the inevitability of it. This album is not going to get the party going on Saturday night. It is grim. Now, don't go thinking it's morose. I wouldn't want you to think that. Drone No Drone really stirs up the muck. Sonically, that's the most intense part of the album. War Song has weight to it. End Song is yet another perfect closing track from The Cure that somehow doesn't feel like it's 10 minutes long, at least not to me. This album is only 47 minutes long altogether. People, that's the perfect length. See, what you do is you make an album that's 45 minutes, and it's perfect. And if you've recorded another 20 or 25 minutes, save it for a 10th anniversary, and then that stuff is suddenly fresh. Sorry, I digress. One meaningful recommendation here, listen to this on CD or high-resolution FLAC files. This album has a certain atmospheric quality to it, or a lushness to it maybe, that compressed streaming files aren't really going to give you all that's there. CD, high-resolution FLAC files. That's how you want to do this. All right, so now, which tier? So it comes down to a few questions. Is it everything I could ever want in a Cure album? No. Is it cohesive and listenable from start to finish? Yes. It's a no-skips album. Did I feel let down that I had waited so long and this is what I got? No. Would I encourage any Cure fans I know to listen to it? Yes. Would I recommend that they listen to it? Yes. Is it probably one of the 10 or maybe 5 best albums I've listened to this year? Yes. Do I believe it's a triumphant, late career return to form for a long-running band with a substantial legacy to protect? Yes. So, yeah. Yep, here we go. This is where it goes. It's not better than Disintegration. It's not really even on par with Disintegration, but it's maybe equal to or slightly better than Bloodflowers. So I guess I'd say it's their 4th or 5th best album. So that is the Cure discography, including Songs of a Lost World. Drop a comment if you agree, disagree. If somehow you're interested in my thoughts on the Smashing Pumpkins discography, check out this video, and I will catch you next time.